Hello everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Ataraku Effect. As always, I'm your host, Claudel, and I want to wish you a very and merry happy new year 2023. I don't know how 2022 ended up for you, but I hope that this new year is going to be in any way better than the previous one. As for myself, 2022 was another difficult year in a lot of different aspects. That's a good one because I took the time to pause and to reflect all of those good things and try to understand why what was happening to me was happening to me, and get some lessons out of it. As in, how do I make sure it doesn't happen to me anymore, or if there's anything that I was doing a certain way that led to the year being difficult. How do I learn from that, and how do I change so that, again, 2023 going forward, I don't have to deal with the same negative aspects of 2022. At least everything in my control. The rest is obviously not up to me. So, thinking about getting into a new year, I think for many of us, the end of the year always comes with some sort of recap. Right? In December, we have Christmas, we have the end of the year, but for some of us, outside of those happy moments, it's a time for reflection. And you start looking at what happened during the whole year, not just understanding how it is already December, feeling as if January was only a couple of days ago. And it can be sometimes difficult or even sad, despite being with loved ones or close ones. But I think it's always good. It's always, if you don't take the time to stop and reflect, I think life will do that for you. And in general, when life does that for you, it tends to be much more difficult than if you take the time yourself to pause and sit down and reflect instead of just sleepwalking through life, literally. So for this year, this new year starting 2023, I'm super excited about it because it's a culmination of a lot of work that I've tried to do on myself in the previous years, a bunch of readings. I've mentioned a bunch of habits that I've built up as well. I've mentioned CrossFit that I do 4 times a week. I mentioned meditation that I keep on telling anyone and everyone around me the benefits of meditation in all aspects of life, including the professional life. So this year, I stumbled upon a concept that I've listened to before a couple of years ago, and for some reason it came back to mind with a lot more clarity this year. I guess I just matured enough to the point that I can understand that concept for what it is. And that concept is, as I think, so I feel, so I act. I'm going to repeat it. As I think, so I feel, so I act. Before getting into what exactly does that mean, let's talk about personal development and relationship that we tend to have with it. I think myself and you might recognize yourself as part of that. You get sick of personal development. Something tough happens to you, or you just decide to be better at some level. And you start watching some videos online, even register on a class that's supposed to make your life better, more organized, more this and that. But then you reach a level where you get to saturation because you feel as if what you're hearing, you've heard that before. And there's very little nuance, or it felt as if it doesn't apply to you, or it's just that novel, right? It's okay, yeah, be disciplined, be active, make a plan. In general, it revolves around that, different nuances of that eventually, but it doesn't, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's been a while since I've heard something completely different. That's why the framework I'm going to talk about is that important for me, and hopefully it's going to be the same for you as well. Part of those personal development classes or books or articles or podcasts or whatever talk about how you need to do more of something instead of sometimes just rephrasing it and thinking about what you need to abandon. Chances are, if something have happened to you in the past that has made any part of your life difficult, sometimes it can be just one part of your life that literally put everything, like either break a certain flow that you had or make life difficult for a while. But I think for the majority of time, it's just repeated events repeated way of thinking or feeling or acting that creates a problem. So in general, I mean, I don't have any data to back that up, but I want to believe that sometimes it's not about just doing more of something, but it's about identifying the way you think, the way you act, and just understanding why you do it a certain way, and stop do that to realize that you can literally improve your life by just removing or changing how you were doing certain things instead of just starting doing new things. And I think it's a very interesting concept because it pushes us to look back at us when we were kids and we have learned to do certain things and we've realized that, oh, some of those things might be detrimental for us. So it's just not starting to do something more. It's literally getting back to a certain childhood state where we were doing less or we were not doing something and life was better. I'm going to provide an example. Alcohol. And as a disclaimer here, I have nothing against alcohol. If you drink alcohol, either it's 1 glass a day, a year, or whatever, that's for you, that's your business. I'm not coming here as alcohol is bad or whatnot, but I'm just going to talk about my example and my relationship with alcohol. So alcohol is not something that I picked up from high school. I think the first glass of wine that I had, I was probably 16 or 17. I was in France, in Grenoble. And it was just intriguing. It's the one thing that, one of the one thing that adults were doing, right? As a kid, like probably most of you, I was doing like drinking sweet things. That's all I was about. All kind of syrup, all kind of juices, all kind of Fanta, Coca, whatever. That's what I was liking. But adults were drinking beers and wine and whiskey and this and that. So at some point, even when I had my first drink, it was about, okay, I'm 16, I'm 17 now, I'm not a kid anymore, I can do this. And I remember not liking it. I remember being intrigued, okay, it's a new taste, it's a new something, but it wasn't like, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. It's not as if I was feeling as if I can't believe I've been missing wine my whole life. Like, no, okay, I literally don't get what adults are liking about it so much, but okay. And then I asked myself, but wait, if that was my first reaction, why didn't I just stop there, right? Why did I kept on drinking? And again, I'm not a heavy drinker, or I wasn't a heavy drinker by any means. But it was just some sort of societal thought, some sort of group consensus. As an adult, you drink. That's it. It doesn't have to be at a party. It doesn't have to be, but socially you meet someone around a meal, a glass of wine, there's a big event in your life, in someone's life, you need to be drinking. When you start working on Thursday, Friday nights during the weekend, you drink. It's someone's birthday. There's a bunch of things that just makes drinking part of what it is. And I never stopped and asked myself, but okay, I'm an adult now. This is what's supposed to happen. So okay, I just kept on drinking wine, and then wine became hard liquor when I went to business school, and then I tasted some beers that are like, okay, I kind of like it. But the bottom message here, the bottom line is that I started drinking and I kind of forced myself to like that habit. My initial reaction with alcohol was not a positive one, but somehow I just say, okay, I just will grow into it. And some people will tell you that, you learn it, your taste will change. But yeah, again, I tasted the first time, it wasn't good. And okay, as an adult, I have to change my taste and I have to accustom my palate to what alcohol is, up to the point where I started liking it. The alcohol example is a good one because the question that I asked myself a year ago or a year and a half, okay, but why do I drink? It's not that good. Again, if I learned to love the taste of this and that single malt scotch, it's not something that I used to do back then. So what exactly it is? So I gave myself a challenge to not drink at all. So the whole year of 2022, I didn't have a single drop of alcohol. And I didn't miss it one bit. And it wasn't that hard. Again, I wasn't an alcoholic, so your mileage vary. If you're a heavy drinker, it would probably be difficult. But for my consumption, it wasn't as if I was waking up in sweat. I didn't have what's the word for that? there's a word for that when you withdrawals. Yeah, I don't have any withdrawal syndromes like, oh my god, my life is so completely different. No, the one thing that just changed are just some of my social interactions, because I find myself not having that much fun outside. I found myself, when you find yourself around people who drink, it's almost as if when you don't drink, you make them feel bad for some reason. At least some of them. There's that peer pressure. Okay, come on, have a drink, get a drink. And it also got me to wondering, you're out, you're having fun, you're drinking. Why do you feel bad having someone next to you not drinking? It's something that a lot of people do. It's something that I have done myself, for that matter. When I was going out with friends in business school or whatever, like, come on, get a drink, get a shot. But when I just stopped and paused, like, okay, why was I doing that? Was I thinking that that person was not having fun because they were not drinking? Was it that because I was drinking, I said, okay, I'm going to have more fun if more people are drinking? Is it because I know that alcohol might change my state of mind, what I say, what I do, and I want everyone around me to be or feel the same way so I don't feel bad or something? Like, everyone will have their own kind of answer, but for me it was kind of interesting to answer even my own question, like, why did I used to do that? Why was alcohol such a central part of everything? And the element of answer that I can evidence, right? Like, it's alcohol make it a little bit easier to make bad decisions, right? And sometimes after hard work or hard event, or again, you're celebrating something you've worked for, you want to let loose. I don't know why let loose necessarily correlate with doing something stupid, but I don't know. There's something about it that wasn't clear for me to answer. Another answer that I've learned a lot from other people is, but I'm socially anxious and alcohol let me be a little bit more free. And that for me is another question that, okay, if then the problem is when I'm in a social setting, I'm not at ease unless I have a glass of alcohol or whatnot in my mind, then maybe the question is, do I really need that substance to make me feel better? Is there any other way? Right? Isn't there a root cause? Because alcohol is just a temporary fix for something that I've identified, right? That would mean that if the real cause is really the social anxiety or whatnot, you can just rely every single time you be in those situations to have a glass of alcohol and wine. I mean, you can if you want to, but I think it's probably a healthy or healthier way to solve that problem. So again, just a quick example here about alcohol, I think, before getting into the framework itself. But that's something, again, that I wasn't doing as a kid. I think most people don't do it. They start doing it, they pick it up. I don't know. I want to bet that not a lot of people have a very good first interaction with alcohol. Either they don't understand, they don't know their body, and they get so much of it, they get drunk and they do potential stupid things or things that they regret in the future. Or they just don't like it that much, nothing happened, but they say, just like I did, okay, it's something that I'm an adult now, I need to do, I know it's going to happen, so I might as well get used to it. And then you use yourself, your body, and you change your palate to start liking something that initially you rejected because it wasn't that great. I have to realize that it's a different concept depending on the country. In France, for instance, it's not that big of a deal about drinking because it's mainly around wine, and I've seen people 15, 16 getting wine. It's no big deal. While in the US, there's that thing around you need to wait 21, and it coincides with people getting out of high school, getting into college. So it's like, oh my God, I'm an adult now. I can actually go in the store, buy my own bottle of alcohol. So for those, it might be there's been so much expectations and so many, okay, I'm finally 21, I can finally drink, that they've built that up so much that the initial reaction might not be as negative or as neutral as it was for me. So again, your mileage, your reaction, your culture, everything will change. But that's just an example for me around alcohol. And especially to finish on that, when you look at alcohol per se, there's a very good podcast by the Huberman Lab podcast. Huberman is a Stanford professor, and he does fantastic podcast about everything, anything, meditation, weed, sports, the brain. And I remember one episode he's done on alcohol, around it being one of the worst drugs one of the worst legalized drug for our body. Again, this is, as a reminder, this is not me trying to push anyone to stop drinking or whatnot. Again, you're an adult, you do whatever you want to do. I'm just pushing us to question instead of just sleepwalking or get into a habit of doing something for so long that we don't even realize what we're doing. But at the core, I want to believe that if you do the same exercise that I've done to ask yourself, but what am I drinking exactly? You might get to the same conclusion. So hopefully this small example will help you to get to that conclusion faster than it took me to remove alcohol from my life. But let's get back to the podcast itself. Let's get back to the framework that I mentioned. As I think, so I feel, so I act. So where does it come from? I've heard it the first time in a podcast called Know Thyself. It's a very, very good podcast that I can only recommend if you speak English. And chances are, if you're listening to me, you can speak and listen to English. It's called, again, Know Thyself podcast. You can find it everywhere. And they do a fantastic job at breaking down a lot of concepts that are either not easily findable in readings or just around you. It's not concept that people talk about every single day, but do a really good job at digging into that. So that's the first time I heard about it. Now, what exactly does it mean? As I think, so I feel, so I act. So that's considered to be the normal, natural process we consciously or unconsciously follow on a daily basis. And being aware of it makes our actions a little bit more deliberate. So let's get into defining exactly each portion. As I think, so I feel, so I act. So thinking gets us to problem solve. Thinking helps us create scenario, a narrative, or anything about a real or made up situation. You can think about what's happening to you, or you can do what I think a lot of us do. You can think about scenarios that are not true, but you just made up. Meaning something is happening to you, or someone says something to you, someone does something to you, and you start thinking, and you go away from just what happened to you and start thinking as in, if that person said that to me, it's because this, it's because that. If they said that today, it means that tomorrow this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So you've left something very tangible, something very real that just happened to you, meaning someone saying something to you, and you've built a whole narrative around that. That's one of the danger of thinking. And we're going to talk about in the next couple of minutes of why that can be, of course, a good or a bad thing. Now, feeling, again, it might sound kind of obvious for some of you there, but feelings, there's a list of feelings that we've managed to identify: joy, anger. But here, feeling will include as well every signal for the body, including pain, hunger, headaches, nausea. So everything here, when we talk about feeling, it's just not the feeling as in, again, happy or angry, but every signal from the body, as in if you're hungry, you're feeling hungry. So every signal that the body sends us and that we don't necessarily actually always acknowledge. We'll get into that, we'll get into what that means again in the next couple of minutes. And finally, acting. As I think, so I feel, so I act. So acting is anything that someone else can witness. As in, you're writing, you're talking, you're exercising, you're just doing something. That's the acting part. And remember that sometimes not doing anything is acting, the same way that not talking is a form of communication. If you are in a meeting at work, there's a questions being asked, people are talking, and you spend the first half of the meeting not talking at all. That's a form of communications, because that's a signal that people around you will interpret to draw some conclusion. Okay, Claudel is not talking because he doesn't have anything to say, he's not interested, he doesn't know the topic, he doesn't like people. Again, getting back to thinking, from my absence of acting, I am acting. Again, by not communicating, I am communicating. So as I think, so I feel, so I act. I'm going to circle back here on the feeling a little bit. The feeling can be gut feeling or intuition. It's interesting because some professionals, business or sport, have that gut feeling or intuition part. Basketball players sometimes will talk about it like they are close to the net, they're juggling, and then at some point they just feel it's time to shoot. They feel, I don't know, there's nothing in their brain letting them know exactly when they have to shoot. It's just a feeling that they can't necessarily describe in words. So it's not the thinking, it's just the feeling, and then they get to acting based on that feeling. I'm feeling that it's time to get the shoot, and then they go for the hoop. So I'm going to get back to what I mentioned a little bit earlier around personal development and why, as I think, so I feel, so I act is kind of, at least for me, changing that. I've mentioned personal development being a lot around you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do more of this. Or, as I mentioned, you need to do less of this or less of that. But how do you get to do it? Or how do you get to not do it? How many do not manage to get the motivation to do what they know is good for themselves or others? Like, how many people get at the gym, start at the gym, New Year resolution, I want to lose weight or whatnot, the first 2 or 3 weeks, they're very diligent, the diet, very diligent, and then by February, everything is gone. And they know, like, it's, I don't know, a lot of people not knowing that exercising or a good diet is good for them. Like, they know exactly what to do. Like, if they sit down and they think about it, they will tell you, yes, I know, I have absolutely no doubt that exercising will be good for you. So what it is then about us in general that don't get us to do what we know we need to do if you want to get better at anything, or just stop doing what you need to do. And this is how this framework is super interesting. As I think, so I feel, so I act, because we're going to talk about the implication. So, as I think, so I feel, so I act. Let's talk about thinking and acting without feeling. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where something doesn't feel right. You think about something, you end up doing it, the result of the action is negative, get you or someone in trouble, and you just knew it. Like, I knew something wasn't feel right. I knew something was wrong. It can be in a meeting. It can be about literally anything. But I'm sure all of us have experienced that. You sit down, you think. You can't pinpoint exactly what's going wrong, what's the problem. You act because, or someone act because it needs to happen. And when something bad happens, it's just as if like you were expecting that. Like, I knew something was wrong. I knew something was going to happen. And that's where the sleep on it expression sometimes comes from. A good night's sleep reset your feelings so that if a feeling that you have one day persists or change to the other day, that's a data point to factor. Someone can be telling you something, you don't understand why it doesn't sit right with you, you sleep on it, and you wake up in the morning and for some reason, okay, you know what, it makes sense. Or you wake up and it's still there, like, wait, I don't know what it is, but it's not right. Like, some people are really good at pausing and say, you know what, I don't know what it is, but let's not do anything unless everyone is aware of that. Or unless anyone can pinpoint what exactly is happening. And some people, again, depending on the situation, just need to act on it. And then you act, and sometimes you find yourself on the other part of the action where it's, okay, yeah, we needed to act, we acted, we knew something was not feeling right, but we can't really, again, put a word or something on that. That's sort of what the implication of thinking and acting without feeling. Now, let's talk about feeling and acting without thinking. I think that's one is pretty self-explanatory. Or it feels good, let me just do it without thinking. That's sometimes short-term thinking. Like, not even thinking at all, because it's, it just feels good, let me do it. And you find yourself in a stupid situation because, well, you were not thinking. Bringing back the alcohol example, you go out, you drink, you have 1, 2, 3, it becomes 4 glasses. Oh, I'm okay to drive. It's okay. I'm not feeling that bad. Or actually, I feel good to drive. I'm sure I can get home. And then you hit someone. Well, you were not thinking, because again, alcohol impairs your thinking. In that moment, your feeling and your thinking are not aligned. Because if you were sober, if you were thinking, you would know that the chances of you hitting someone when you were drunk or intoxicated are just higher than when you're sober. So again, everyone has its own example here, but yeah, feeling and acting without thinking, that's it leads to what it leads. And I have to say that one of the positive implications, it can be excellent for people with good intuition. If you find yourself in a dire situation where you need to act quick, of course, you don't necessarily have the time to sit down and think about it for hours. Like, if a lion is chasing you, you won't have to sit down and think about, okay, what can I do to escape the lion? Like, no, you're feeling threatened and you just act, you start running. So when I'm going to talk about the implications of what does it mean when I say as I think, so I feel, so I act, what does it mean if you skip one of those phases? The implications are not necessarily negative. Again, the lion example is a good one. It's just showing what happens when that process is not followed consciously or not. Now, we've talked about thinking and acting without feeling. We've talked about feeling and acting without thinking. Now let's talk about acting without feeling or thinking. And that's just craziness, right? You're just acting, you're just doing something, like you haven't thought about it, you didn't feel any certain way, that's just craziness. A counterexample here, I have to say, so I was in Paris in September, and I was walking with a friend in the street of Le Marais, and we stopped. There was an artist, and he had a bunch of different like postcard-looking art pieces. And people were stopping and we're asking him, okay, what exactly does that mean? Where's the inspiration comes from? And his answer was, I just sit down or dream or think about something and I don't necessarily know what it means. And it's meeting people like you. What does it mean to you? When I talk to different people, I get their interpretation that I derive a meaning from what I painted. And that was fascinating to me to hear, like, wait, so you can sit down, start painting and not knowing where you're going? For someone like me, computer science engineer with a very if-then-else kind of brain, I am fascinated by people being able to just do without thinking and only derive the meaning after that. So I've read a bit about it, and I know in a lot of Eastern philosophies, like in Japan, for instance, there's actually something about acting before thinking, as in it doesn't even have to resonate or talk to you. Just do something and then let the meaning comes afterwards. Again, it can be very crazy depending on who you are, where you are, and who you're doing that with, because it can be devastating for yourself or others. But for something like art, it makes complete sense because it's raw, it's unfiltered. The thinking or the feeling can actually be filtering whatever art will come. Because by thinking, you might say, oh, it's not enough, it's not good enough, I'm not feeling right, it's not this and that. While the rawness of just picking, again, a brush and start painting whatever comes to you and even think about it later, get other people exposed to your art and get the meaning from that. That was a fantastic encounter in France. So talking about acting without feeling or thinking, again, I see it's craziness, but as I mentioned, a counter example as in art where acting without feeling or thinking can actually be what differentiates you from the rest. Now, sometimes in the as I think, so I feel, so I act, the basic principle here is indeed you think about something, you stop and ask yourself, how do I feel about it? Do I feel right? And for that, you need to be in tune with yourself and your body. Going to bring back meditation here again, but meditation having one of the benefits of centering you in your mind and in your body. The more you meditate, the more you get more in tune with that feeling. As in, I'm about to make a decision, I'm about to do something, I've thought about it. Let me just calm down, sit down. How does it feel? Do I have a knot in my stomach? Do I feel agitated? Am I shaking? Am I sweating? If you just pay attention to it, you will get sign of how you feel about it. And if in the contrary, you're completely calm, you're relaxed, you feel excited, it just feels right, you will feel right about it and it will make your action even much more confident because there will be no sign, conscious or not, that what you're about to do is not aligned with who you are. So the general process, as explained again, as I'm thinking about something, okay, it's feeling good, let me act on it. Sometimes it starts with a feeling, then it goes to thinking before acting. Like when I'm hungry, I'm not sitting here saying I'm thinking I'm hungry. No, the first signal is my body or my belly especially telling me, dude, I need something. So I'm hungry. It's come from a feeling. Okay, let me think about it. I need to go to my kitchen. I need to break some eggs. I need to this and that. And then I get to act. So the default is as I think, so I feel, so I act. But as we've hopefully I've made it clear right now, there are certain cases where it's completely fine if it starts with a feeling before going to thinking or acting, or starting with a feeling, going to acting before thinking, or in the art case again, starting with acting before going to thinking and feeling. As I think, so I feel, so I act. Something very important to mention here is what happens if in that process you don't close the loop, as in you don't finish it. We've talked about what it means to do one thing, like we've talked about, for instance, thinking and acting without feeling. But there's another part that is as important, as in what happens if you don't consciously close the loop, as in you think, you feel, but you don't act on it. That can be madness. And I'm going to get there a little bit. Let's just start with just thinking. What happens if you just think and you don't feel and act? Well, it stays in your head. It never leaves your mind, and it can even tend to detach you from reality. I've mentioned an example of something happening to you, someone saying something to you, I don't know, insulting you in the street or cutting in front of you in their cars. That's the only event that happened that someone else can witness. And from that, you can brush it off, or you can start thinking and stay in your mind. Okay, that person did that to me, said that to me because of that, because I'm not worthy, because they are an asshole, because this and that. And you can think your way, and the mind can be very creative. You can think your way to craziness. And again, when I talked about detaching you from reality, is you thinking about something for so long, sometimes just out of one or a couple of events, and you manage to draw conclusions that are coming out of thin air, because someone else, having witnessed the same event, can get to complete different conclusion. So just thinking, again, if it's a problem, it's useful because you think and then you're going to act on it's a problem you're trying to solve. So you think so you can act and solve the problem. But just thinking for the sake of thinking, in general, is not useful. It makes you stay in your head. It makes you detach yourself from reality. It is, again, I'm looking forward to hear back, but I don't know any example of just thinking for the sake of thinking being good. Now, just feeling, again, doesn't get you anywhere either, right? I'm feeling hungry. If I'm in my apartment, I'm feeling hungry, and I don't do anything about it, how's that helpful? Or I'm feeling scared, or I'm feeling any kind of feeling that you have, you don't think about it, you don't act on it, gets you nowhere. It's important, again, for me to reiterate a certain point where you can feel something, think about it, and act by not acting. As in, something's happening, I'm feeling afraid. Wait a second, you're afraid because you're about to do a presentation in front of an audience that you don't really know. Okay, don't do anything about it. You still have to do the presentation. So as of now, don't run out of the building. So don't act, just do nothing. That fear is going to pass the moment you're going to start your presentation. It's going to get better. So not acting in that sense is useful, but feeling just for the sake of feeling, and I'm scared. Like, no, okay, think about it. Why are you scared? What's going to happen? And then from that, decide if you're acting or not. Just acting, I think, doesn't differentiate humans from animal. Like if you're just acting and from the acting there's no introspection later, as in, okay, how do I feel about that acting, or let me think about the action I've made. If you just keep on acting, again, you're not different than an animal. So nothing more to say there. Now, thinking and feeling without acting, it stays within you. And it creates a loop that is difficult to get out of. Okay, I'm thinking I have to do this. It's important that I do that because ABC. Okay, how do I feel about it? I don't know, I don't feel good. Let me sleep on it. I wake up in the morning, I still don't feel good. Okay, let me get back to thinking. Okay, I think maybe I shouldn't think about A, but B, how do I feel about it? I don't feel good. Let me think about it again. let me spend the night, and then I wake up. I can keep that loop going on forever. And a bunch of entrepreneurs or everyday people can have amazing, fantastic idea, but they get stuck in that loop. I think, I feel. It doesn't feel right for this and that reason. Let me think about it more. Okay, how does it feel? Okay, how does it? If you never get to acting, it's going to stay in your mind. And in general, unfortunately, it leads to regret because I had a fantastic idea, I've thought about it for years, but I never implemented it, and guess what? Someone else did. It can also be beneficial if you think about doing something stupid, it doesn't feel right, and you don't do it, well, again, it's good for you. If you get stayed in that loop and it keeps you out of trouble, that's perfect. That's just one of the consequences. As always, depending on who you are, the circumstances, the action, it can be positive or negative. But that's important. Like outside of everything in that trifecta, as I think, so I feel, so I act, thinking and feeling without acting is really being stuck in everything. Like sometimes people advise to just act. If you've been thinking and feeling about a situation for so long, it grows within you. It can literally make your life miserable. Sometimes at that level, an action is better than no action, because even if the actions ended up being a mistake, you can learn from that mistake. You can go from acting to thinking. Okay, I thought, I felt. It was taking so long. At some point, I was sick of it. I didn't know what to do. Something needed to happen. And in spirituality, I'm going to bring that up. They talk, the term is manifesting. As in, if you keep that in your mind, if you keep that within you, that means there's an idea, there's a project, there's something within you that needs to get out. And sometimes you don't have the perfect way of having it go out, but just putting it out is something. I've mentioned, I remember the first time I put out this podcast, I think it was in 2019. I'm almost ashamed today to talk about how much time it took me to think about, I'm going to do this, it's going to, but how about my voice? How about, all of those barriers, all of those fears I was putting in front of myself, coming from no one else but myself. And the moment I did it, buying the mic, and by the end of the day, it was already out on Spotify. I'm like, okay, why did I spend? I felt so much better because it was out. It wasn't perishing inside of me. I wasn't being frustrated because, I don't know, my self-esteem even wasn't going down, because that's another thing. If you think and feel and never act, your self-esteem take a hit, because every time you make a promise to yourself that you don't deliver on, your self-esteem take a hit. And every time you think about something, you make a promise to yourself and you act on it, your self-esteem goes up. That's why at the gym and everything, they always say start small. Even if you're just going at the gym and watching people work out and you don't do anything, that very small act of picking yourself up and going to the gym, that's already one thing. That's already commitment. As small as it is, it's already a big commitment. So out of everything I've mentioned the danger of acting without thinking or feeling without thinking, etc. Thinking and feeling without acting is probably the most dangerous one, because that feeling of being stuck, I'm sure you felt it somehow, or someone around you have felt that way. So if there's really one thing to remember as outside of everything I've said so far, it's just to be acting. Think about something. Take the time to pause. It can be a second, it can be a minute, it can be a whole day, it can be spending the night on it. Think about how you feel and then act. And I'm going to get back again to feeling, because that's something that in personal development I've never heard about before. Because let's be honest, how do you measure feeling, right? I mean, I'm a product manager. My work is literally based on being able to measure everything, and we can't really measure feeling. But the more you read, the more you practice, the more you understand yourself, the more you understand how critical it is to feel. And it's not something that is cultivated, because you go to school and they teach you about every single thing, but not necessarily feeling. And that's a shame. Why is it a shame? I'm going to bring up my spiritual aspect here. So if it's not for you, feel free to skip forward and skip this part. But it's part of me, it's who I am, so I have to bring it up. All of us are a mix of a mind, a body, and a spirit. The mind has been extensively researched. I think we understand the mind, not fully, but we understand the mind very well. The body, we understand the body very well. There's a lot of studies that's been made, a lot of books around how to take care of our body, how to improve it. The spirit, again, just like the feeling, is not something we can measure. It's not even something we can observe. So obviously, it's very difficult to have a study on something you can't even observe, because the scientific method coming from empirical study, if you can't observe something, well, it's very difficult to study it. But again, for the sake of the discussion, whether you believe it or not, let's assume that we all have a spirit, and the spirit being that intangible thing, that soul, that thing we all have that we can't really describe, but that's the source of some of the gut feelings, some of the intuition, some of the maternal instincts, some of the even idea generation. Like, nothing have ever proved that the ideas are being generated by the brain. So let's, again, for the sake of the discussion, think about the spirit as that intangible part of ourselves beyond the mind and the body. So you go to school, they teach you about the mind, how to improve your mind. You learn, you read books, you watch documentaries, you watch videos, you do exercises, you do problems, you train your brain, you train your mind to get better. About the body, okay, you need to exercise, you need to take care of your diet. Your body is being fueled by what you drink and what you eat. So to take care of your body, take care of what you eat, what you drink. And we've gone even as far as getting a perfect, like for a body in perfect condition, this is the type of vitamin that you need to have, and protein and this and that. But when it comes to the spirit, there's absolutely nothing telling us how to be more in touch with our spirit. And that's where meditation comes from. That's why in any kind of religion, you're going to have some form of meditation. Prayer is a form of meditation. Cutting yourself from the external world, being able to focus on something. And for some, it's a god. For some, it can be a tree. For some, it's the air. Again, depending on where you're coming from or the religion, you have a different way. But in any kind of religion and spirituality, there is a form of cutting yourself off the external world to focus from within. And from having meditated almost daily for about a year and a half now, I can talk about the many benefits of being able to feel. That idea of as I think, so I feel, so I act. You train your feeling. I mean, at least part of the training is meditation. And let's think about it. We are constantly bombarded by all kind of sensation left and right? I remember a study saying that we are exposed to, 1,000 advertisements per day, or maybe even more than that. I remember, but it was a ridiculous word. That's on the ice. On the auditory part, I don't remember being in a bar or even a hotel lobby, any place without all kind of music. Like, we are constantly bombarded with signals. So it's not even up to you to say, I want to hear something, I want to see something. It's going to be in front of you. It's going to be in your face. I don't know today, if you want to be completely quiet, you probably need to take a retreat or a trip or live in a place that is very isolated. But even living in the city, there are ambulances running on these. There's always something happening that make you feel. But getting more in touch with yourself and cultivating that sense of gut feeling, of intuition, I know meditation to be a big part towards it. Because again, meditation is taking, 1, 3, 5 minutes, 1 hour out of your time to do absolutely nothing. You listen to your thoughts, you hear yourself thinking, you feel yourself thinking, and as part of that, because your body is still, you get more in touch with your feeling. So I won't give examples on the many situations I found myself in where I felt as if my intuition was on point, or things I was expecting, some relationship that felt all kind of way, and almost 100% of the time for the past couple of months, it's been on point. Now, it can be luck, it can be anything else. You believe what you want to believe, but I want to believe that I've trained myself sufficiently that when I think and feel and act, I can trust my feeling because I've taken the time to think or even understand how I feel. If I'm starting to sweat, what does that mean? Like, two people can be sweating but having two different interpretations and reason behind it. So it's kind of up to you if you want to train how you feel. How exactly do you do that? You read, you watch documentaries, you train your mind, you train your body, you work out, but that feeling aspect, how exactly, outside of meditation, how exactly do you do it? I don't know. If you have any idea, again, outside of meditation, I'm more than happy to hear it. But for the most part, yeah, this is it. As I think, so I feel, so I act. As a human, I'm a mind, I'm a body, and I'm a spirit. So if I want to get myself better, if I want to change my habit, if I want to change my action, I can either do nothing and sleepwalk through life, or I can at some point stop and realize, wait a second, I'm an adult, I want to get better. Maybe let's pause. Maybe let's take a second to understand what I do, how I act a certain way. Let me change my habit. Do I really want to wake up every morning, go to work, come back at night, maybe see a friend or two, binge watch a TV show, maybe go to the gym, maybe get a drink, then wake up again, do the same thing, then maybe on vacation, see my friends. It's if you believe there's something more than that, if you believe you can be more than that, you can be better than that, and if you tired at some level of the personal development lingo around just do more, just be more disciplined, just if you believe there's more than that, I think this framework is really excellent. Like as I think, so I feel, so I act. And start doing that in very simple thing, as in take the time to be conscious about what you're doing. Take the time to be aware. Like you realize just in one day the amount of things that we end up doing because we've been used to do it. Like I mentioned alcohol again, it's like when I asked that question just to a couple of friends, I was surprised by their reaction, or even themselves were surprised. And okay, yeah, you're right. We've just come to accept that for every big thing we need to drink, but how did we get there? So stopping and ask yourself those questions is also very important, because from my experience, and I'm only 33, but from my experience talking to people older than me, if you don't take the time to stop, pause, and think about your life and think about a change you want to do, life will do it for you. And in general, in a much more brutal fashion. It happens to most of us in general when you get out of a relationship. You realize, oh my God, I forgot myself in that relationship. I forgot my friends. I forgot my family. It can happen when you lose someone close to you. Where was I? Why wasn't I calling him or her more? What was I? Was I really that busy? Were I really spending that much time at work? It can be someone getting or being sick. It can be COVID for some people, because you find yourself at home much more than before, and then you start questioning. But again, you can wait for life to throw something at you that will tend, again, in my knowledge and survey so far, to be brutal. Or you can take that step for yourself to say, okay, what exactly, where do I want to bring my life? What do I want to do? It doesn't have to be intense. That's another thing. I think in personal development, it's sometimes there's a sense of urgency. You need to act now. You need to act now. I think you can just say, okay, you know what? This week, let me try to be much more aware of what I do. Like, let me try to maybe binge watch a show, especially those habits that you know it's good for entertainment, but you know are not necessarily conducive to who you want to be. Like, if you want to spend more time, if you have like crazy entrepreneurial ideas, you know that binge watching is not necessarily going to help you towards that. So if you want to become a little bit more serious towards where you want to go, you can just start small. It doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be let me stop my life right now and do a complete change. It's like, no, just start with observing, just being a little bit more aware of who you are and your habits, and start questioning them one by one. What am I doing? Why am I doing that? What exactly am I gaining from that? When did that start? Is that helpful to me or others? And I think with time, you'll get to a natural observation of what's working, what's not working. And when it comes then to changing those habits, when either it's getting new ones or getting rid of some ones, I think this framework can be helpful. As I think, so I feel, so I act. And the more you do that, like every single thing, the more you'll train that muscle as thinking, taking some time to pause, listen to yourself, how you feel about it, and then acting. Again, just that 1 second of feeling, it can make a huge difference in the decisions that you make, in how you act and how you impact yourself or people around you. So yeah, I think with that, that's pretty much it. I think my main message, my main plea for you in 2023 is gonna be just that. Are you sleepwalking through life? Are you into an automated mode right now where you feel as if you're just in a wheel and keep on spinning and doing things or saying things or acting certain ways, even unconsciously, and it just became part of you? My only plea would be, okay, just like pause for a minute, try to be slightly more aware of yourself or even other people around you, and you realize, I think, a lot more. It's not to employ big words here, but it really feels as if there's another different reality when you start to be consciously slightly more aware of who you are, how you act. Like it can be so small. The small lies that you tell, the small lies that you see someone tell. Like, wait a second, why do I feel the need? It's such a construct around you. Again, it can be family, it can be society, it can be work, it can be, but there are so many habits that we have come to take for granted and just embrace that we can change. The only way a habit becomes a habit and something becomes accepted by all is by no one questioning it. If someone wakes up Sunday and start dressing a certain way and no one questions it and people embrace it, it will become a habit. But the moment someone stops and says, wait a second, is that right? What are we doing? Then it gets that person or more people to start questioning, and in general it can be for the better, especially when it comes to be a better person, becoming someone that, or the person that you want to be. If you don't take a hard look at yourself, even if it starts with a sophomore at the beginning, I think it's going to be difficult. So 2023 is going to be just that for me. In the continuation, I talked about meditation a lot of time. So this whole framework, as I think, so I feel, so I act, really strengthen that idea of being more aware, being a little bit more conscious of what I do. And so far, so good. I can only report not just 2023, but even starting last year, I can already, from a personal standpoint, without having benchmark, I know that I'm doing much better. The difficult things happening in my life, either at work or in the personal one, are handled much better because I'm not stuck in loops. I'm not just thinking for thinking. I'm just not feeling sad for feeling sad. But there is a clear framework and concept that gets me somewhere. So hopefully that framework is helpful to you. Hopefully you get something from it. And yeah, again, happy 2023. Hopefully this year gives you everything and more that 2022 couldn't. It's going to be a tough one. In tech right now, it's already, people are losing their jobs. Hopefully you're not impacted. From what I was reading, it's going to go even beyond tech if the inflation keeps on creeping up as it has been for the past couple of years now. So yeah, if it's going to be a difficult year, I think it's going to be even more of a reason to be a little bit more conscious on ourselves and others on what's happening, so that no matter what comes to us, we can face it with a lot more preparation and a lot more of a positive outlook of what comes, because the more prepared you are, the less fear you tend to have. So this is up to us to get rid of the fear and everything else. All right, people, see you in the next one. Peace.